Gotcha for Life and Black Magic Woman podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land which we recorded this episode. We also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from where you, the listener or viewer, are tuning in. We would like to pay our respects to elders both past and present. We acknowledge that this land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. This podcast talks about mental health, suicide, and lived experience. If that brings anything up for you, please take care while listening. And remember, you don't need to worry alone. Welcome to Mental Fitness Conversations, a podcast about how real people build their mental fitness through connection, community, and simple everyday actions. Brought to you by Gotcha for Life in partnership with Black Magic Woman. Here's your host, Mundanara Bayles.
Hello, you mob, and welcome back to this exciting partnership series with Gotcha for Life, a foundation that I feel privileged to sit on the board of. But this is a opportunity for more Australians, and particularly First Nations peoples, to hear about our stories, our people, to talk about mental health, wellbeing, but also talk about culture, connection, community, resilience, and everything that makes us feel black and deadly. And the best person, I don't think I could think of anyone else, after seeing you at the Aboriginal Comedy All-Stars, first time ever, got to see you recently, and I just thought to myself, people, if you don't know Steph Tisdell, she does have a book that we're going to talk about, but you have been out there making people laugh. And the first time I saw you was on TV at the Melbourne Comedy Festival, and I thought, oh my God, there's a black woman. First time I seen a black woman on stage in that environment. So my sister, I'm excited, and I hope you too that are listening to this yarn. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes.
However you want to introduce yourself to my listeners, you know, your mob, your name, a little bit about where you grew up.
Yep. So my name is Steph Tisdell. I'm a proud Yidinji woman. I was born in Mount Isa on Kalkadoon country, but mostly raised in Brisbane, Meanjin. And I am a comedian, non-practicing comedian.
I just make people laugh. You just be you.
I'm an actress and a writer as well. So that's me, I suppose. And it feels weird saying that too. Like, just being like, oh, yeah, this is what I do. Like, when people go, oh, what do you do for a living?
Do you feel hard? It's hard. If you stop for a bit, you try and think, what do I do? Who am I?
Yeah, but also just that they go, oh, you're a comedian. Like, and you go, yeah, I guess. But yes, I am.
Is it a good thing when people hear that you're a comedian? What's the next thing they say? Do they actually crack a joke?
Yes,
do
always.
They? Or straight away?
Yeah. And the one that I go to is this one time I had a guy during Melbourne Comedy Festival. A lot of the tourist things are free for comedians, and I was like, well, that's fine. I've never done any touristy things in Melbourne. And so I went to the that tall building, and I said, oh, is there a discount for comedians? And he was like, no. And I was so embarrassed.
Shame.
And then he went, why? Are you a comedian? And I went,
no.
Yeah. But then he goes, here, I've got a joke for you. And now I've heard this a million times. This one was the best, and I use it constantly. Tell me this isn't the best dad joke you've ever heard. What do you call a chook looking at lettuce?
I don't know.
A chicken Caesar salad.
Stop it. Thinking about, cracking jokes and making people laugh, and sometimes even taking the piss out of ourselves, our families, our mob, some of the chaos and stuff, and kind of turn it into a bit of a comedy. I think our lives are fascinating.
Yeah.
As black fellas, we are all different people. We come from all walks of life. We are not one people in a sense. We're not one homogenous group.
Yes. Well, this has been something I've been quite passionate about, right? Like diversity within diversity, in that, and it's always been something that the reason why I'm passionate about it is because I've always struggled to, I always stressed that I wasn't black enough, like my whole life, right? So I grew up in middle class suburban Brisbane with no black fellas anywhere. Like, my parents were business owners and super busy. We didn't see them a lot. We didn't get the opportunity to go home a lot because they were so busy. And the reason why they were so busy, a big part of it was that mum was like, well, my old people didn't fight for nothing. I'm going to be successful, and I'm going to make sure each of you kids gets into uni and all of that, right?
Yeah.
But like
she wasn't mucking around.
No, but the sort of sad part of that was then that we were kind of stuck in a very white world, and you don't get to explore that until you're a certain age, and then by the time that you do, you wonder, did I do it right or did I do it wrong?
Or why am I different?
And I wanted to tell that yarn because I know that's a really common yarn, especially for black fellas in metro areas.
Are we talking about the book?
Well, that's exactly, well, that's why I put that in the book, right?
The skin I'm in.
Exactly, right? Because the book was kind of, it was funny, they approached me after I went viral for comedy and they were like, we haven't seen a voice like this before, so would you write a book? And I went, yeah. And I said, but I'm writing a sci-fi. And they went, okay, well, we just sort of, and I went, I want to write a sci-fi. Started writing, and then they said, we just need to see it, a sample of your writing. And the only thing that I could write about was my experience as a black woman. And they went, that's kind of what we want to read. Instead of, your sci-fi sounds cool, but that feels like that's a bit easier for you. And I was like, don't put me in a box. And then I went, no, I really need to tell this yarn. Like, just of when we've shown black fellas in different areas, the representation is often people who are super connected or people that have had a lot of real difficulties. Like, there's a lot of like
trauma have been impacted. People
100%.
Who have
100%. And we all carry that trauma. But I wanted to show that kind of the disconnection and what, like, the trauma that itself brings, and that it's not always that, you know, that you've been downtrodden for, like, you. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know why I've lost my words.
I would say this, right? And I'm not trying to speak for you, but a lot of us that are kind of, it's not that we're stuck in our trauma, but sometimes it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Whereas my aunt always said to me, she said, you're not a victim, right? You're not a victim. When you think about our people, we're owners and runners of country.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago that we were running an entire country.
Yeah.
And we ran this country
so
without any interference for thousands of years.
Yeah. So
you speak from that point of view as an owner and runner of country, not from a victim.
I think it's so important, right? Because I think what happened, I think everybody's searching for reason, right? And we have so many reasons to feel the way that we feel as black fellas. Like, I think there's a lot of pain, and the pain runs, like, it's in your genetics, it's in your blood, you know? And I think the side effect of that kind of knowing what's wrong is that we, I think we turn on ourselves. I think that's what happens. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're so afraid of getting the messaging wrong because the messaging's been wrong for so long that now that we're in control of it, there's this real fear that if we ever deviate from what is seen as the correct messaging, and that we have to nip it in the bud straight away. And like, I've been at the receiving end of that, and it's hard because you go, but my intention is this, and it's so hard to know the difference between intentionality versus the outcome of something, and at what point do you take responsibility for that? You know, like,
how did you bounce back from that moment? Because I watched that publicly play out on social media.
I almost took my life. Several times. It was a really hard time for me. At the same time, I was going through a DV relationship and was leaving that and, you know, fearing for my life. And it was probably the hardest time of my entire life. And I'm not totally sure how I dealt with it. I think I recognised that I needed to step back from that I needed to build up a lot more strength to feel confident in saying the things that I wanted to say. I knew why I was saying them. I'd felt like, as a black woman in a space where there hadn't really been a lot of black women, I needed to be edgy and cutthroat and hit right between the eyes of white fellas because I had this mainstream audience. And I thought, if they're listening, I got to just hit hard. And I think what's really hard is that then you end up excluding your own people from the narrative you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
And that
and the
became
backlash. There was big backlash.
Yeah. And it was so hard because I was like, but I'm not speaking to that, I'm speaking to this, you know. And
I've got this platform.
Yeah. And so I knew why I was doing it, but you know, the when you so publicly make a mistake, it's really hard to know how to deal with it. And the entire industry of stand-up and that whole sort of world where you're sort of in the public is incredibly lonely. Like, you know, you don't sleep well, you're performing till late at night, you're eating Like my weight had gotten out of control, which just, fed back into what the trolls say to you. And it's this highly pressurized thing. And you go, man, I only did this because I wanted to make a change and I wanted white people to listen. And if you can make them laugh, you can make them listen.
So you achieved that. Because getting an invitation to like the Melbourne Comedy Festival, whatever, these other mainstream spaces that we have not been invited to for a very long time.
Yeah.
Would you say that you've achieved what you've set out to achieve in terms of getting your messages across and telling it how it is? Like it's a lot of it is just truth telling.
Yeah. I think actually for me, it felt disingenuous because in my life I was doing so many things that were really community focused and mentoring a lot of people and, building a lot of people up. And then it kind of felt like I had to justify myself by almost sharing that. And I thought, well, that's not why I'm doing it. Like, I don't want to be that person who's trying to virtue signal. And I recognized that I wasn't strong enough to tell those things because I knew that I wanted to tell the story of what it feels like to have all of the expectation of being black, like you want to be and fight for your people, and then going, I'm lacking knowledge and I'm lacking cultural grounding because I didn't grow up there. And so you feel like an imposter.
Yeah.
And so it's hard because you have to speak. It was just so much pressure.
Yeah, you're trying to constantly justify
big time.
who you are, your identity, your existence, why you're doing what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I still think of it like it's still obviously quite raw for you as well.
Yeah, big time.
Well, mental health is in Australia in general, right? There's a lot of people impacted, but our mob in particular as well because of that intergenerational trauma.
Big time.
And all of the grief, loss and trauma and the, sorry business.
Yeah.
Sometimes like I always say, when are we going to just get together and celebrate?
Yeah.
When can we see each other without going to a funeral?
Well,
where
exactly.
you feel like
100%.
You don't feel right having a laugh with your cousins because someone, the coffin's there.
Yeah.
So we don't really go to weddings.
Yeah.
I've been to 2 weddings in my life. 2 weddings.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew anyone in my family to get married.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they're probably financial. There's money behind it. There's reasons behind it. But for mob to come together, and I love that about our people in terms of that sense of community.
Yeah.
How have you been able to, well, one, ground yourself in culture to keep doing the work that you're doing?
I think the thing that saved me when I went through that time was because I was really afraid that I'd brought a lot of shame to the family, and so I called up my elders and, I kind of said, look, this is what I've done. I want to apologise and, here's what I was trying to do. And all of my elders went, yeah, it's very obvious what you're trying to do. I don't know who's getting at you, and I said, oh, no, I see their point and everything, same time, if you apologise, it makes it seem like you did have intention. That's the whole thing. It's really hard to know how to handle the situation. And they said, come up here and just ground yourself back on country. And my auntie took me out to these big kauri pines on our, so Lake Barine up there, that's my country. And she took me up to the kauri pines. They're really old trees. And she said, these are your real elders. And she went, you know why? She made me stand next to this big tree.
I have goosebumps all over my body right now.
This changed everything for me. It really did. She said, see these trees here? She said, now they've been here. They're thousands of years old. She went, they've looked after at least 1,000 generations of your people, right? She went, now what I want you to do is look, they're fatter at the bottom. That's like your belly. She went, and they got scars all the way up and where they've been hit by lightning or fire, and she went, but they keep on growing up so that they can grow out, and they shade, they take care of the land, they feed us because they've got these nuts on them. And she went, what they do is they keep on pushing up so that they can spread their light. And she went, they got roots underground, and, you need to make sure that your roots are sturdy and you just keep on growing up. Don't get caught growing out at this part. You grow up. And that's how you provide. That's how to be generous.
I can imagine, Steph, in that moment, what it must have felt like. Things now, this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
How our old people can use our environment, but on our own country.
Yeah.
Even more powerful.
100%. And I even just remember, the kind of the conversation my auntie was having with me about, kind of why why we all, got to kind of lean on each other and remember that, one person can be affected by their own trauma or their own story, but as a people, we all come together. And she was explaining about, when the wattle flowers fall on the creek, right? The flowers, then the little bugs come there. So then the little bugs that live on top of the water or on the tree trunks come out there, and they might fall onto the water, which brings in the smaller fish, which brings in the bigger fish. And so she was just talking about the interconnectedness of everything. And it just made me go, okay, well, even if I have copped this backlash, it's fine. I know that what it's taught me is that that's not actually the right world for me. And I'd been quite sad and lonely in that space anyway. And it had become quite a dangerous place to be for the DV stuff anyway. And I was like, I need to step away from this because I'm not strong enough to either completely back myself or to say the right thing in the first instance. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of inner self-work or just time away.
Yeah. Yeah.
To reflect.
And it made all the difference in the world because then I could, think about who I am and what I want. And then, I sort of randomly fell into acting, and then that felt like more of a space for me.
Yeah.
Because it's not lonely and it's supportive, and because every time that I'm on screen, if I see a script, I go, no, this is a black character now, and I am, I get
bringing
to
that
advocate.
cultural knowledge in now. What you've learned, you've been able to now use it.
Yeah.
In another space.
Yeah.
To make sure that people are
the coolest
doing
thing
things
is
the right way.
Yeah. Well, I can advocate in a way that I couldn't advocate before when it's just yourself. It's all wrapped up in your own biases and your own personal fears and all of that, right? But so here's an example of the coolest thing that happened. So I was approached to write on a BBC show, an Australian adaptation of a BBC show, and I'm broke, man. So they say, do you want this writing job? And I said, look, or they said, do you want to
take anything?
No, but they said, you want to be the cultural consultant? And I went, I don't have enough knowledge of cultural protocol. I said, a cultural consultant is so different to a writer. Yeah. And I said, I'm still learning.
Let me just write.
Yeah. And I said, you need to distinguish these two. These are two completely separate roles. If you're asking me to write, you don't get to ask me to also be the cultural consultant, And I said, those are two separate roles. If you want to do this correctly, then you need to have at least 2 black writers and a cultural consultant. And I thought to myself, I'll just talk myself out of a cash injection I could have used, right? But they turned around, they went, yeah, you're right. And they gave me the job plus 2 other black fellas. And I was like, yeah.
You've created space for others to come in.
Yeah, because I advocated. And I go, okay, that's what I can do, is that when you're in spaces where you get this, I knew, so I originally studied law and journalism. I thought I wanted to write policy and give speeches and be a politician. All that I wanted was to change things for my people, right? My nan was under the exemption, right, which is still shameful, I think, for a lot of black fellas. So
your nan was exempt from the Protection of Aborigines Act, which meant your nan was a free woman and not still under surveillance.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Anytime she could go back under that Protection Act.
Yeah.
But that exemption,
there's
a bit of shame there.
Big shame, I think.
Wow.
I think there's still, when you look back at we've got all the archives.
Because they had to live white.
Yeah, they did. They weren't allowed to speak language. They weren't allowed to hang with other black fellas unless they were approved.
Because they were exempted. So if you had your exemption certificate, you basically met the criteria to live a white life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the archives, because it was my great-granddad, he, in the archives it says, is good for abo, right? It's awful. And you
how
just
they were spoken about.
Yeah, and it was because he spoke English, and that was and then he was indentured labour because all of his money was sent back to the government and given back to him in rations, right? But he didn't want
for their captivity.
Yeah, it was
Crazy.
awful. It was awful, but it just meant that the kids weren't taken, right? And so when my mum was growing up, she said her mum was like, don't talk about it, you follow the rules, because of everything that she went through.
Yeah.
And so
it was survival, sis.
Yeah,
keep
big
your
time.
children. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think all I'm getting at is that, like, basically, I think that there is this undercurrent that must have existed at the time, just reading between the lines and the kind of the archives and that was giving up or giving in, right? And so I was so passionate, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like, I can see that the disconnection that I feel is because of all of this.
There you go.
Right? And so I was like, all I want to do is be in spaces where I can change policy and actually advocate for my people.
Did you go to law school?
Yeah, I studied law and journalism.
That's where we started with this,
Yeah.
You thought you were going to write policies and advocate for people because you started looking at the archives of what had happened to your nan and great-grandfather.
Yeah. And then I went, okay, I got halfway through the degree and went, oh my God, this is the worst. And then I quite accidentally fell into stand-up, and it's a long story, but I got dared to do it and I did it and it went really well, right? And I went, now that, if I can build a platform there, that...
You found your calling, sis.
Yeah, and that's what my elders always say, and my Auntie San, she's passed now, but she always said to me, that's the old people. Like they because every time I'd veer off that path, something
would happen. We need to get stories out there to the broader community, but in particular, there's not enough for our own mob.
No, there's not.
You can ring 13-yarn, right?
I do often.
Do you?
That's actually a big thing for me. That's what got me out of that space.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 13-yarn.
And laughter.
Yeah, tell people about 13-yarn.
Yeah, so 13-yarn is it's like Lifeline, but for black fellas, and you speak to black people, so they get it. You don't have to spend half your time explaining, and then this happened, but that's only upsetting because of this.
Then you don't want to tell them everything because then you feel like you're getting judged.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Honestly, but 13-yarn, they get it. They get all the nuance. They get all the different parts of it. And I use 13-yarn a lot, especially through that time.
Well, running marathons is a big kind of, I don't know, from writing books and being a writer and into doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Sis, when I saw your post about this doco that you're working on, about running a marathon, I'm not joking. I haven't said this to my husband. I'm like, if she can do it, I can.
Yeah, 100%.
So you are literally...
I'm training.
You're training and you've lost a lot of weight.
Yes.
Yes.
So at the moment I've lost 33.5 kilos.
Yes.
But the biggest, coolest thing is just the running. And the reason why I decided to run a marathon was, my mental health was poor and my physical health was poor. And I just was like, looked at, through my life, every major trauma has been associated with a huge weight gain, right? Like my weight has always been tied up with my mental health. And I went, why aren't we talking about that? I just couldn't find what I wanted to learn. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do a documentary. And the other side of this is I was like, if I have a documentary crew with me or producers, then I'm not allowed to give up, right?
Yeah, it's like another layer of accountability.
Yeah. And so I reached out to a producer and I put together something and I sent it to a production company and they were like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so we started, and then I actually had a group of support around me to help me get in touch with the right people. So I'm training with Deadly Runners. And then as well, my life has completely changed because the side effects of doing it as a doco, right? So I have to keep video diaries. I don't know, there's something, you can write something with your pen and paper and read it back and go, oh God. But when you have to look at your own face and cry to your own self and then watch it back, you both get perspective and a little bit more kind of compassion for yourself as well, like I'm full of self-loathing, but having to watch myself and go, oh, you don't need to stress that much, Steph, that kind of being able to see yourself from a different perspective. So that's helped. I also stopped dating men. That's number one.
Look out. Sorry, shop shut for you fellas.
This friend of mine on one of the jobs I was doing said, aren't you queer? And I went, no. And she went, yes, you are. And then we had a big yarn and I went,
maybe I am.
Maybe I am, because she just said to me, it's about people, and I just went, that is true. I've never given a shit. And then
just never labelled yourself.
Well, I just had always dated men.
Yeah.
And then
next minute, what are you married up now? Are you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, stop it!
I've never been happier.
I love
ever.
This
She's
for you.
The most wonderful person I've ever.
Can you give her a shout out?
Jessie.
Oh, look out.
Turned that way. No, she's just the most wonderful, beautiful. I've never had a healthy love.
Well, I was going to say to you, who is your community? How do they support you and who are they? And then you mentioned Jessie.
Well, Jessie's probably the big one for me, at the moment, but my brothers I'm really close with my brothers and, you know, my mum and my dad. And we've always been quite tight and insular. I've made it a really big focus of mine ever since I did the Comedy All-Stars because Kevin is my greatest mentor, changed my life. Yep, Kevin Krapinuri. He's one of the most important men in my life, and he changed everything for me as well because when I kind of started doing stand-up, I said, oh, well, I probably shouldn't talk in those spaces. I'm not black enough, you know, I'm still working on my connection, and was really in a process of trying to find my feet on country and spend more time there and that. And he's like, sis, that's our yarn though. Like he said, you know, that's true for a lot of black fellas out there, that we live in two worlds and that's all part of it. And he said, I recognise it was a privilege for me to grow up in my community with my culture around me, but, you know, like, it's harder to do that, you know, like, and so he said, I want you to speak for our people, you know, because he used to do a lot of things for me. He said, I'll get you to start touring with us. And I was living out of my car, right? I was broke as anything, and I was struggling, and I didn't have any money. I was working too much in comedy to have a full-time job, but wasn't making enough money to, you know,
sustain yourself.
Yeah. So he would get me on tour, and then he'd say to the boys, all right, you fellas, let's give a little bit of our money Steph's way because she's sleeping in the car.
Are you serious?
Yeah. This is what he used to do, right? So he'd do these kind things for me.
Don't you love our mob?
I love our mob so much. But how much, even better than that is this, right? Because everything he ever told me has changed me as a person. So he used to say, when you love your audience, they love you back, which is true. And I always just put love out. That's why I prefer live stand-up instead of anything for TV. I started hating when I was doing TV. But then this one day I like broke down because I said, oh, how do I ever repay you for everything you've done for me? Like, you got me in touch with this person and that gave me this gig, and now I'm doing this gig. And I said, how can I ever repay you? I was like in tears, and he said, hey, I don't do this for any, you know, I don't do this for getting payment in return.
There's no expectations.
Yeah, he said, I haven't done anything for you. He said, all I did was open a door for you. He goes, what I ask of you is you walked through that door. Now what I want you to do is hold that door open for somebody else. And as soon as he said that, I was out there, like I was mentoring different people. I was finding opportunities. I was making contacts with different people and setting up all of this stuff, right? So that there was a space for our mob to come through. And I started, you know, like I was living with this comedian, and I said, and he was so good, but was trying to find, you know, that big breakthrough thing. And so I spoke to my management and I said, all right, that job that I got, I don't want it anymore. We're giving it to this fella. It was like, you know, $4,000, and it was a TV gig. And I said, I think he's ready. This is what I need you to do. And then that set off his career. And then the next one came through, you know, a corporate. And I said, I don't need that money right now. I mean, I did, but, you know, I don't know. Here's another one. And then that was the thing. You just knew
someone was in need, in more need than you.
Yeah, exactly. Because, but that's what Kevin had taught me. And all of a sudden I started to just build community by going, well, that's what I was shown, and that's what I'll show now.
I love that in terms of just for a message to leave our audience, listeners. What kind of words, not of hope or wisdom, but like just in terms of speaking to mob that are listening right now that might be trying to find their way or not too sure if they're doing what they're meant to be doing, what would you say to them?
The big thing that got me through hard times, and I'm in a really good place now, was I own my truth and I own my story, because that's the thing, nobody can tell you what your story is. And if you own your truth and you own your story and you speak vulnerable, I think the vulnerability is a big key to it, right? And I think that being authentic is a big key. If you speak from your own truth and from your own story, then it doesn't matter if it's not the right or the perfect story, because it's a true story. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's perfect, but everyone can tell truth. So just own your own story, own your own truth would be my thing.
What a good way to finish up. And I want everyone to literally, especially our mob, to read your book. Right, start with that. That's an audio book. Steph is the voice, and it feels like she's there with you telling her yarn her whole life. And then you're quite approachable online as well. Like, I see people will just reach out to you and probably DM you.
Yeah. I'm off socials. I mean, I'm on them, but my management takes care of it.
Yeah, you're right. There's only so much you want to be.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
You still got to be out there to some degree.
But my management takes care of it, and they pass things on.
Removed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, if you want to get in touch with Steph, I know her people, so you can talk to my people. But, you know, Gotcha for Life is close to my heart.
Yeah.
The work that we do and trying to share these stories, and they're not always easy to hear, some of our stories, and that's okay.
And they're not always easy to tell.
No, that's why I just want to say thank you for just straight away, no questions asked. You're like, I'll be there. Let's do this. It's long overdue. But yeah, I'm really grateful that you have loaned us, your voice to this. It's not a cause, but it's a movement.
Yeah. Well,
where we don't want people to worry alone.
Yeah.
And we want people to know that they are part of a community.
Absolutely.
And to make sure that they reach out to their community in times of just being
I'm definitely always available for that. So I do check my socials, and any messages like that, they always come through to me. So
deadly.
Anybody can, I don't know, hit me up for my phone number, give me a call if you need it.
But she's married, taken. Well, on that note, I just want to say, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being part of this amazing series where we could talk about mental health and well-being.
No, thank you. It's really special.
Yeah,
Appreciate
just being black in our lived experience.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
How deadly we are. Don't forget how deadly you are.
Yeah,
That's
and you
what
can
my
come
dad
back
always
from
said.
Too.
You can bounce
You are
back.
not as bad as your worst moment.
I love this. I just want to go to another stand-up and just watch you.
I'll be back.
I can't wait. Yeah, watch
Excellent.
this. Steph's making a comeback.
I'm making a comeback.
And I hope all you mob enjoyed this deadly yarn. Now you know who Steph Tisdell is. And just remember, I always say to people, man, we got so much going for us
big time.
as black fellas.
Absolutely.
Don't focus on the negatives. There's too much positives in our lives, opportunities out there in society. You've got to take, I always say, my little ones as well, about taking control of their own life and making them think about, making their own decisions, thinking for themselves. So supporting people, sharing stories, but then letting people...
One last thing.
You tell me.
Sorry, one last thing. Do you know what one of the best bit of advice that I got from 1-3 Yarn was this fella, he said to me, the counsellor on the phone said, I know it feels really scary right now, but think in 20 years, does that thing that you did that you felt like it was a mistake now, is it going to have a positive outcome, a nothing outcome, or a negative outcome? And I was like, probably either positive or nothing, And that was a really big thing as well. It's just putting things into context. So often we can't do that when the world feels overwhelming.
Of course. And sometimes we need someone else to help us.
100%.
Think about.
Yeah. 1-3 Yarn has changed, saved my life several times. So definitely use that.
Deadly. Well, look, on that note, I hope all you mob had the most amazing time listening to this yarn. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you do.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see the documentary with your marathon.
Yes.
You might see me doing a marathon. Who knows?
Yeah, let's all do a marathon.
We'll see. Okay. On that note, thank you for joining me. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Until next time, bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to Mental Fitness Conversations. Keep building your emotional muscles with the free Mental Fitness Gym app, packed with tools, tips, and everyday actions to support your mental fitness. Download it from the App Store or Google Play Store, or visit thementalfitnessgym.org. If anything in this episode brought something up for you, you don't have to worry alone. Reach out to a trusted friend or family member and know that support is available. You can contact Lifeline on 131114 or 13 Yarn at 139276 for free and confidential support for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a rating, share it with someone in your village, or drop us a message. We'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to follow Black Magic Woman and Gotcha for Life on all socials to keep the conversation going.